Hello, this is Displace, and today we will be doing a deep dive into DPS Rogue. Season of Discovery has brought a lot of new abilities to this class, building on the assassin and combat theme of rogues, and I've really enjoyed playing this class this season. For this guide, I'm going to be going over the following. The best two builds of the class, stat priority, rotation, consumables, macros, and add-ons. There are two main builds for the Rogue DPS, Assassin and Combat. Assassin is currently the leader in single target DPS, while Combat comes in a close second and is useful when you need to burn down multiple targets at the same time. Minus the talent tree, everything else, including most of the rotation, is the same between these two builds, so it's easy to switch them out. So let's go over the runes first, and then we'll take a look at the talent tree and how it all plays together. These runes are going to be the exact same, regardless of if you're going combat or assassin. So for our hands, we have Mutilate. Mutilate got a huge buff in Phase 2 by having its energy cost reduced from 60 to 40. This makes it compete with Saber Slash, and because of the damage it does, as well as giving us 2 combo points, Mutilate is just overall stronger for the energy amount. So this is going to be our main ability. Next, we have the Deadly Brew rune. This is probably the most important rune you're going to equip, and there's been a lot of confusion around how this rune works. So there are 4 things with this rune. First, when you inflict any other poison on a target, you also inflict deadly poison. This means, for example, if you have mind-numbing poison on your dagger, when that deals poison damage, you're also going to deal deadly poison damage. The second, and probably most important, is that if your weapon does not have poison applied, it has a chance to trigger instant poison as if instant poison were applied. And this is where a lot of the confusion comes from. What this means is that you don't need to have poisons on your weapons for PvE. There was some confusion around the proc chance, and people were under the impression that the instant poison proc chance was lower for the rune than if they actually had the poison applied. But the last sentence clearly says it has a chance to trigger as if instant poison was applied. So since instant poison has a 20% chance to be applied, you have the same 20% chance even when you don't have the poison applied. It also means that once instant poison is applied, deadly poison will also be applied. So you're basically getting 2 poison hits every time poison is applied. Number 3 is that deadly and instant poison damage increases from your attack power. This is really powerful because it means your poisons scale with your gear and level. And instead of being a flat amount of damage, there's a modifier based upon your attack power. And the last thing is that the instant and deadly poison this rune applies is based on your highest learned poison. So if you haven't upskilled your poisons, it will only apply rank 1. So leveling poisons is a must. Once leveled, this rune will be using instant poison 3 and deadly poison 2, which is a huge DPS increase, especially because the poison damage, again, scales with your attack power. The next rune we'll use is Envenom. Don't worry about the complexity of the tooltip. What this rune actually does is it deals instant poison damage based upon your deadly poison doses on the target. It also has a 75% increased frequency of applying instant poison, which then, because of the Deadly Brew rune, turns around and deals deadly poison. And as you can see from the tooltip, this also scales with your attack power as well. The next rune will be Shadow Step, which will put you behind your target as well as increase your movement speed for 3 seconds. There are a few benefits to this rune. First off is that it helps close the gap between you and the enemy. So for example, if you ran out and you need to get back in quickly, you can use this rune to do that. You can also use it to move out of the way of certain mechanics. Another cool thing is that you can use this while stealth and it won't break it. So it helps as a great opener. And the last rune we'll be taking is Master of Subtlety on the feet. This increases damage by 10% for 6 seconds after coming out of stealth. So this will make your openers stronger. It also allows you to use Vanish in the fight for a small DPS increase, since that puts you into stealth. This rune, coupled with Shadow Step, is really what helps with a great opener for that 10% extra damage. So the first build we're going to discuss is the Assassin build. The strength of this build is in your poisons. There's also a lot of synergy with the runes that we discussed earlier, which is why this build is at the top of the list. So as you can see here, we're going to be putting 5 points into opportunity from the subtlety tree. And since Mutilate benefits from backstab abilities, this is going to give your Mutilate an extra 20% damage when you're behind your target, which should be always. Moving over to the Assassination tree, we're going to be putting 5 points into Malice, which increases our crit chance, but also allows us to get lethality a little later down in the tree. Moving down, we're going to put 3 points into Ruthlessness. This is going to give us more chances to use Envenom by allowing us to get another combo point. We move over and put 3 points into Improved Slice and Dice. This increases the ability by 45%, which just means we hit faster, longer. And faster attacks mean more chances to apply poisons. Next, we're going to take 1 point into Relentless Strikes. This one, pretty self-explanatory. And then 3 points into Lethality. And this is going to increase the critical strike damage of our backstab, which means our Mutilate gets more crit damage. We're only going to be putting 3 points into this because the talents lower in the tree are much more powerful than the crit damage. The next one is we take 5 points into Vile Poisons. This increases the damage of our poisons by 20%, which is pretty powerful. And then 5 points into Improved Poisons, meaning we have a 10% increased chance to apply our poisons. This means that instant poison now has a 30% chance to be applied instead of 20. And last but not least, Cold Blood, which gives our Mutilate ability a 100% crit chance. Now, if we combine this with Master of Subtlety, we have a nice little increase in DPS. And that's it. This is a straightforward build that puts emphasis on poison damage. The next DPS build we have is a combat build. This build uses all of the same runes as the Assassination build and has the extra benefit of Blade Flurry for times when you need to kill multiple mobs. So all of the points are going to be in the combat tree. We're going to take 5 points into Lightning Reflexes. This isn't because we need it, and more about opening up the rest of the tree. The other 2 abilities in this row are pretty useless to us. Next, we take all 3 points in Improved Backstab. This again is going to increase the critical strike chance of Mutilate. And then we take 5 points in Precision. This is pretty powerful since it increases your hit chance. And with the 1% hit chance we also find on some of the higher end Season of Discovery gear, we shouldn't be missing at all. The next 2 abilities are just utility talents. So we're going to put 2 points into Endurance, which allows us to use Sprint and Evasion more, and then 2 points into Improved Sprint. We come down to the next row, and where we pick up all 5 points in Dagger Specialization and Dual Wield Specialization. This increases your crit chance as well as your offhand damage, respectively. On the next row, we pick up Blade Flurry. This not only increases our attack speed, but allows us to hit up to 1 additional target with all of our abilities for 15 seconds. It has a 2-minute cooldown, so unfortunately we can't use it all of the time, but it is still a nice boost when we have more than 1 target. The next talent is Weapon Expertise, which increases our skills with daggers by 5, which means less chances to miss. And then the last talent is Adrenaline Rush. This increases our energy regeneration by 100% for 15 seconds. This is on a 5-minute cooldown, and so we should use it for our burst damage. That is the combat mutilation spec. It's pretty straightforward. It does do a little less damage than the Assassination build earlier, but again, this does allow for some multi-target damage, which could be useful in certain fights. So the priority for our stats is going to be as followed. First is agility, followed by attack power, then crit chance, strength, hit rating, and stamina. So as we see, our main stats we're looking for is really agility and attack power. 1 point of agility gives us 1 point of attack power, as well as some crit. Currently, as it stands, 29 points of agility gives us 1% increase in crit. Attack power increases the amount of damage we deal with our attacks and abilities, and because we're using the Deadly Brew and Envenom runes, it also increases our damage to our poisons. Critical strike chance is next, and its power lies in the fact that we'll be attacking consistently and quickly due to slice and dice, which means we have more chances to crit. Strength also grants 1 point of attack power for every 1 point in strength, but unlike agility, it doesn't grant crit, which is why it's a little further down on the list. However, this does mean that these two can be used interchangeably if necessary. It also means that gear with both agility and strength on it are really good for us. Hit rating increases your chance to actually hit the target, and if we can't hit the target, we can't DPS. So although this stat is very important, the amount of gear that actually comes with hit rating is rather low until we start crafting that epic gear, which gives us both hit rating and the primary stats we need. So focusing on hit rating outside of that gear would mean that we're giving up a lot of other stats elsewhere, which makes this a lower priority for this phase. Last stat is stamina. Each point in stamina gives us 10% health. So this could be considered DPS increase because it keeps us alive, which is our only way to DPS. The rotation that we'll be following is going to be the same for both the assassin and combat builds, with the exception of our major cooldowns. So we should always be doing our best to enter combat stealth to gain the benefit of Master of Subtlety. Remember, we can use Shadow Step while stealth, which will put us directly behind the enemy. So if we're stealth, we're going to use Garrett, and then we're going to cast Mutilate to build up those combat points. Once we get up to 5 combat points, we're going to cast Slice and Dice. This is going to allow us to hit faster. And then we're going to continue to cast Mutilate. And as long as Slice and Dice is active, we're going to cast Envenom at 5 points. That is the basis of our rotation. Some of the things that we can do is during the fight, we can use Vanish to refresh the Master of Subtlety. And that's going to give us a slight increase in our DPS. And then obviously, if you need to interrupt anything, just use your kick as necessary. For the Assassin build, Cold Blood should be used on cooldown. It has a 3-minute cooldown, and so some fights we'll be able to use it multiple times, but we should probably use it when we're actually benefiting from Master of Subtlety. For the combat build, Adrenaline Rush should also be used on cooldown, and if you need to DPS multiple targets, you can pair it with Blade Flurry. For more of a multi-target scenario in either of the builds, you can actually switch out the Shadow Step rune for the Shuriken Toss rune. This does cost 30 energy, and it hits up to 4 targets, which makes this ability pretty easily to spam. I don't think that this is going to be needed for any boss fights, but it could give you good DPS in trash. To start with, we do not need to apply poisons to our weapons because we're using the Deadly Brew rune. Instead, we'll be using Sharpening Stones. So if you have a druid or a shaman in your group, you'll only need a Sharpening Stone on your offhand, as your main hand weapon will be utilizing Wild Strikes or the Wind Fury Totem. So for our elixirs, we're going to want 2. The Elixir of Agility, which gives us plus 15 to Agility, and the Elixir of Org's Strength, which gives us plus 8 to Strength. These two do stack, so we want to use them both. We also can use Rumsey Rum Black Label, which gives us a nice stamina boost. For our food buff, we'll want Dragon Breath Chili. This food causes you to breathe fire, which gives you a DPS increase. Because of this, it's going to be the most sought after food for all melee DPS and tanks. And then rogue specific, Thistle Tea, which restores 100% energy, which can be used when we blow our cooldowns to continue to DPS. There are a handful of macros that we can use to improve our DPS and utility in fights. The first one can be used with Distract, or if you're an engineer, any of your bombs. This macro changes the ability to be used where your cursor is instead of having to work with the green circle. So here are the macros. As you can see, for the bomb, you have to use the stop casting command because it is a casting ability, and any of the other abilities you try and use will break the cast. However, with Distract, because it is an instant ability, you don't have to use the stop casting. So without the macro, we have to manually pick where this goes and then press the mouse button. So as you can see, we have to use this green circle, we have to pick where it goes, then we have to press the mouse button to actually throw the dynamite. However, with the macro, wherever our cursor is where we're going to throw it. So if our cursor is over here, we press the button, all of a sudden it throws it. And this is really useful because it does not cause us to click off of our target. We can just easily move our mouse and hit our button without having to worry about an extra click. The next macro can be used for both blind and kick, and it makes this a mouse over ability. So as long as the target you're mousing over is an enemy and is not dead, you can actually use this ability. This makes it easier as you don't have to click off of your target, which will cause you to lose your combo points. The awesome thing about this macro is that if you aren't mousing over anything else, it'll still work on your current target. So, for example, I'm DPSing this target right now, and if I was in range of this other target dummy, I could kick it. Now, as you can see, it says I'm out of range. However, once I stop mousing over here, it allows me to kick my current target, which is really powerful when you're in boss fights or any other fight that actually needs you to interrupt additional targets without you breaking your focus on your current one. There are about 3 add-ons that I think are useful for the Rogue, and some of these are actually useful for other classes as well. So if you're using the default UI, one of the best add-ons is tool range. So if an ability is out of range, it's going to highlight the entire ability red. So as you can see, all my abilities are fine, but if I click this combat dummy, all of the abilities that I'm out of range on are highlighted in red. And as I move closer, they unhighlight, which means now I can use them. This is really good because the default UI just highlights the number of the ability in red, and this kind of brings it to your forefront. Now, this does not work if you're using an add-on like Bartender. It only works for the default UI. And if you look, here are some of the settings that you can use. So as we can see from the options here, we have 3 ways we can color our abilities. Anything that's out of range, anything that's out of mana, or for the Rogue out of energy. It's really anything out of resource, and then anything that's unusable. Okay, so if we look, we can change the color or the opacity, right? So any of the abilities that are unusable are actually gray. So like my Slice and Dice, you can see under here, my Envenom. And as we can see, changing the opacity will make all of these abilities disappear off of my action bar. I really like the gray, but as you can see, out of mana, not really useful for it to be blue. Let's actually change this to something stupid like purple, and I'll show you what this looks like. All right, so as you can see, everything's red. All right, as we approach, the red goes away, and then as we continue to use our abilities, we lose energy, and as you can see, all of those abilities turn purple because we don't have the energy to use them. But as you can see, my Slice and Dice is available, but my Envenom is not because I don't have any poisons on the target, so I can't use it. This is a really powerful add-on that allows you just at a quick glance to see what's available and what's not, what you can use and what you can't. The next add-on is Ice HUD. It's a heads-up display that centers your health and energy around your player, keeping your focus front and center. It includes things like combo points and an energy ticker. The power of this is that you are already looking at your character, and it's easy just to see out of the peripheral where everything is at, so you don't actually have to go and look at your frames or take your eyes off of where you are. So as you can see, we have the enemy of the health, we have my health, we have a little combo point here. So as we continue, right, and then you can see the little energy ticker saying, hey, this is when we're going to actually get more energy. And this is highly customizable. So you can change quite a bit about this. And I think this is a really powerful add-on where it just keeps your gaze front and center. The last add-on is actually a WeakAura. This is a WeakAura from Sabimaru. I'll actually link it in the description below. But it comes with pretty much everything you need for just basic rogue stuff. It keeps track of things like your abilities, like puncture and slice and dice, and it has an energy bar, it has your combo points, and it actually has a swing timer, which is right here. So as we're going, we can actually use this. It has an energy ticker as well. And as we go through, if we need to, for example, kidney punch, it'll tell you how long that's on cooldown, can't be used. So this is really powerful as well if you don't like any of the other heads up display ones that we mentioned. If you have any rogue specific WeakAuras, macros, or add-ons that I did not cover, please let me know in the comments below. Until next time, may your quests be legendary, your loot be plentiful, and I will see you in Azeroth.